Chapter 29. Friday, the day of the big game, had finally arrived. I couldn't pay attention at all in class. I missed 4 words on the weekly spelling test. My brain just wasn't there. Instead of triumphant, I wrote trumpet. I think I could spell only one word today: basketball. After what seemed like several lifetimes, Miss Phelps announced that any students wishing to participate in the basketball game should go to the gym and warm up. Madison and I stood up. Across the room, I saw Oscar stand up too. That was it? No one else was playing? While everyone had been talking about the game, not that many people actually planned on playing it. This was a problem. I had decided since the teachers were taller than most of us, we needed lots of players to sub in and out to run them into the ground. We needed more players. The 3 of us looked around the room, and the other students all stared back. Miss Phelps looked a little worried. It's just for fun, guys. Even if you think you might want to play, you should go. I saw Oscar nudge Andrew, and he stood up reluctantly. Hey, Haley, Serena, come on, I said between my teeth. Serena shook her head. I've got a gymnastics meet this weekend. My coach will kill me if I get hurt in the basketball game. Haley? Haley wrinkled her nose. It's really not my thing, and, there are players in Mrs. Tibbs' class. I'd prefer teammates who are not out to get me, I thought. Then I heard a small voice say, I'll play. I turned around. It was Talent, who would not play basketball and who was the one person who kept me from being the shortest person in class. I swallowed my disappointment, and I tried to look appreciative. She was willing to play, right? Great, let's go, I said. When we got to the gym, the teachers were already there warming up. A couple of the teachers from the younger grades were there, along with Mr. Belloc, as we had guessed. There was also another tall, lanky man who looked vaguely familiar. Do we know him? I asked Madison. Madison stared at him for a moment. I think that's Miss Phelps' boyfriend. Doesn't he look like that? Like the picture that Mrs. Phelps taped inside her closet? We watched him dribble up to the basket and put up an easy layup. This was definitely not fair. Who said boyfriends of teachers could play? That wasn't the biggest surprise, though. That came when Mrs. Anderson, the librarian, trotted into the gym wearing a powder blue gym suit and matching glasses fastened with a head strap. Mr. Belloc tossed her the ball. We watched her square up for a 3-pointer and fire one in. Who knew? Mrs. Jurgensen wasn't playing. She was assigned to watch over our team. She moved her head slowly from side to side, like a turtle. You all are the student team, are you? She asked me. Yes, ma'am, I answered. I didn't usually say the word ma'am, but something about Mrs. Jurgensen made me use it. She frowned. I don't approve of these things. Students and teachers shouldn't play basketball together. Let's get on with this. Let's get this nonsense over with. I turned to our group, which now included Paul, Sloane, Ariana, Gabby, and Jeremy. Okay, they've got ringers, but I think our best strategy is to keep them running. Anytime there's a breakaway, we should pass the ball up to Paul, because... excuse me? I don't believe anyone made you captain, Lucy. I'm not saying I am, I countered. I'm just throwing... Hey, said Oscar, let's just do the shooting around. We have not much time. Madison leaned over. Sloane wouldn't know a good idea if it came up, and it bit her in the butt, she said in a low voice. The other grades started to filter in, walking past the 2 large boxes marked Sloane and Lucy. I tried not to look. I could hear them whispering, trying to figure out who to vote for, and then a clonk as each can went into one of the boxes. Clonk, whisper, clonk, clonk, whisper, clonk, clonk, clonk. I couldn't take it any longer. If I'm way behind Sloane, I'll just die, I thought. Just look, it can't be any worse than not knowing. I peeked just in time to see the little boy, maybe a first grader, carefully putting a can into the box marked Lucy. The boxes looked equally full. Okay, so far so good, and my class was still coming. But then a voice pierced the murmuring of the crowd. Sloane! Mrs. Connors came marching into the gym, carrying a huge flat box of canned tuna fish. There must have been about 30 cans in it. They looked heavy. Sloane! crooned Mrs. Connors. I brought those cans from Megamart, just like you asked. See? Sloane mouthed a sickly sweet, thank you, to her mom. I couldn't decide who I hated more at the moment, Sloane or her mother. Then Miss Phelps walked in with the rest of my class. Most of the kids voted for me, though a couple stopped and studied the 2 boxes. I looked away when Harrison made his vote. I just didn't want to know. Miss Phelps went over to the Mrs. Connors and pointed to the huge pack of tuna. I was supposed to be warming up, but I couldn't help dribbling very softly so I might hear what was going on. I heard, not quite fair, but it's for charity. Both Miss Phelps and Miss Connors had tight smiles on their faces that didn't match their look in their eyes. Finally, Miss Phelps walked away, hands on her hips, and Miss Connors cheerfully put the whole flat into Sloane's box. This is not good, said half of my brain. Just focus on the game, commanded the other half. You can make it up in free throws. I looked again. The boxes were definitely lopsided now, in Sloane's favor. Mrs. Nicholson tapped the microphone. I want to thank you all for coming to our first faculty 6th grade basketball game and food drive. It's so exciting to see all of this food for our local pantry, and we're about to see a great game between our 6th grade and faculty. She was actually wearing a royal blue suit that she had in my dream. This could not be a good sign. Everyone began hooting and clapping. I jiggled by my leg, trying to shake out my nerves. I scanned the crowd. I didn't see anyone from my family, not even Yipo. Mrs. Nicholson started making a bunch of boring announcements. Please hand in your gift wrap orders this week. Parents, please save the box tops and soup labels to get more points for our school. 5th grade strings will be holding a concert next Thursday evening at 7. Blah, blah, blah. If it was possible to explode from stress, I would have been in little pieces all over the ceiling. This is a terrible idea. Why am I here? I'm going to make a fool of myself in front of my entire school. Finally, Miss Nicholson finished the regular announcements. She glanced over at a small group of mothers who were counting up the cans of food. While we're waiting for final count on the food donations, let's get started on those free throws, she declared. I held my breath. Was it my turn? Representing Mrs. Tibbs' class, first we have Sloane Connors, she said. I exhaled. I wasn't sure if I was going first or second was better, but suddenly I was glad I was going second. Sloane stepped up to the line. She had on a pink tank top and matching shorts with the double white stripes going up and down the sides. She also wore a ribbon in her ponytail in the exact same shade of pink. I glanced down. I had on a t-shirt from the summer basketball camp and my lucky pair of shorts that I had pulled out from the hamper. You can do it, Sloane! Yelled Miss Connors from the sidelines. She dribbled 3 times and then brought the ball up to her face. She paused a moment, and she shot the ball, pushing both arms out straight. Her form wasn't great, but the ball seemed agreeable enough and went into the basket. For the second shot, she dribbled twice and put more arc on the ball. It went in. For the third shot, she looked like she was shooting from one shoulder. That went in. I started to feel a little sick. Her form was terrible, but her shots were going in. On the fourth shot, though, Sloane started looking a little too confident and didn't even square up to the basket. The ball rattled around in the cylinder and popped out. "Oh," said Gabby and Ariana in unison. A few more disappointed sighs rose up from the crowd. Mrs. Nicholson picked up the basketball and expertly dribbled it in a few times. Then she held it out to me. "And now for Mrs. Phelps' class, Lucy Wu."